Hello everybody, in today's video we are covering in-ear monitor training. This is a breakout that happened at Eagle Brook's team night a little while back, and we cover all the basics on how to get a great mix for your in-ear monitors. It's a tricky thing, the system can be crazy, and so we try to speak in very simple terms so that you can have an understanding of how to better work the in-ear monitor system and make everything sound great in your ears. So I hope this is helpful for you. We've got it time stamped, so hopefully that helps you find specific sections, what you need to know, but please enjoy in-ear monitor training.
Are going to show me the way, okay? You're the pros. So what I'll do is I've got some questions. We'll start there. We'll ask some questions. Bryce is really excited.
I'm Isaiah. Nice to meet you.
I'm going to introduce you guys.
Oh,
Don't worry.
I'm Bryce.
Yeah, I'm going to...
Well, it's too late. We already did it.
No. Good thing Drew's going to edit this video later.
And action.
Okay, so hopefully these questions will spark some conversation. We can actually have, you can see the mixer on the wall, so we'll be able to do some real-time mixing. You'll be able to hear demonstrations. It's going to be high-tech and incredible. And then after we do all this, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you guys have any specific questions, we'll have a mic down there. You can ask those questions, okay? So let me introduce these wonderful... Oh, you were going to say something.
No, I'm just waiting to be introduced. That's fine.
He doesn't get a mic very often, so...
This is why.
It's a wired one.
First, we got Bryce in the middle, worship leader, one of our best worship leaders. He paid me to say that.
There we go. I knew there would be one. Thank you.
You don't need to say anything.
I'd like to thank God and my mom for this experience.
Great.
Let's cut that part out. Hey, Drew, can you timestamp that? Let's cut that out.
I like it being vulnerable, though. Anyways, over here, do all of you know Isaiah? Oh, my gosh. You know his glory. One of our best sound engineers. If you hear a mix at Apple Valley, whoa. It's incredible.
That's true.
Thank you.
So, and it's good to have a sound engineer's perspective when we're talking about this kind of stuff. So, all right. Shall we begin?
Yep, got a lively crowd. Let's do it. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so, and then there's a rule tonight that we are going to try to follow, and that is we're not going to get too technical. I don't even know what the word frequency means. Good. So we'll try to speak in simple terms, and if any of these guys start getting too technical on me, I'm going to take this mic and throw it at them, start a fight, all right? And inevitably, we might have to be a little complicated. It depends on what we talk about, but we're going to try, keep it simple. You're going to walk away with very tangible things. All right, cool. So the first question, because when it comes to vocals, I hear this all the time, sometimes from my own mouth, but from other vocalists, the phrase, I can't hear myself. So I got my mix up all the way, and yet I still can't hear what I'm doing. And I'm singing really flat. What's wrong? It's not me, I swear. So,
That's good.
We'll cut that out too.
Drew, he's not in here anymore.
So the first question, Bryce, we'll start with you, and then Isaiah, you can chime in too after that. But if someone says, I can't hear myself, what do you think is usually the problem with their mix? Go, Bryce.
Me first. Yeah, it's usually just, I mean, it's an indicator of a bad mix. So I can't hear myself isn't front of house where audio is like not sending you what you need. We all have essentially the same thing. And there are people on the stage that can hear themselves, and there are people that can't. And usually it ends up being, if you check this out, so it'll be a mix that's like this, and then the vocal is like this. And
exactly what I do.
What's what's hard with this kind of a mix is you're like blasting your ear so hard that your brain is telling you you can't hear anything. And so usually
It's called threshold shift.
it's,
Hey,
that was it. Threshold. What was the second word?
Shift.
That's what I thought.
I
you
know
said.
that word.
And so usually a good starting point, if it's like, oh my gosh, my mix is like out of control, I can't hear myself, is really to start bringing almost everything down. And just since we're right here, there's a nifty little tool in the master section, right there, master. You can do all channels all at once. You can't see it happening, but it works, okay? Start there. No, I can't hear anything. Start there and then see what's popping out, see what you really can't hear. If you bring your levels down and it's like piano is now 100% gone, it's probably some of your problem. And then slowly, just kind of start bringing the like main things up. Start with your vocal if that's what you feel like you can't hear. Set that level and then set your mix around what you need to hear. So if you're an electric guitar player, bring your stuff down, set your level where it's like, this is really clear, I can hear this, and then support your mix around yourself.
Nice.
There's a couple of things you forgot, but it's okay.
Oh, that's so rude.
No, I'm just kidding.
You guys talked before this?
There's a thing. I'm going to use one complicated word, which is called occlusion. Anybody heard of occlusion? It's just
I'm melting.
the term for what happens when you plug your ears and talk or sing. And it's when you hear your own voice in your head. And when you put your in-ears in, you're battling that pretty significantly. And so it makes everything muddy. It makes it tough to get your voice. And one of the things you can do to overcome that is just turn up your vocal really, really loud. But that's not the best thing to do. You're going to end up with what Bryce talked about. Threshold shift.
Hey.
But
I love my job tonight.
Everything's going to end up sounding bad. So one of the things that we're working on right now, and Matthias at our White Bear campus is actually testing with maybe some of you, is some recommendations on what to do in your EQ. Can you pull up EQ there? So like some starting settings for a vocalist for yourself. You wouldn't want to do this for somebody else because it would sound bad, but when you're hearing your own self in your head, you need to overcome that a little bit. So we're doing some testing and we're hoping to be able to roll out some recommendations of like, here's a really good starting point to help you overcome that, because that's a really real problem and it's not something that anybody else can hear for you. Like I can listen to your mix to try to help you out, but I'm not going to be able to hear it the way that you hear it, which is a challenge. The other thing, in addition to having other instruments, the band guys are always making a lot of noise, making frequencies that might be adding to that problem or masking or covering up, the things that you need to hear, is like getting a bunch of drums in your vocal mic, which I'm sure you've never had before. I would say like using that solo button to go through and figure out which source is creating all that noise to narrow it down could be a really good starting point. And if it turns out that it's your mic, one of the things you could do is like...
So you're soloing like one at a time?
Yep.
Checking each, okay.
Seeing where that noise is coming through. Sometimes you might find out that like the bass player is standing next to drums and his talkback's on and it's just getting cymbals and that's in your ears and you need to get rid of that forever because it's a bass player. Mm-hmm. No, just kidding. But really going behind the LED wall with your own mic, getting away from drums, pointing it in a different direction, you might be able to be like, oh yeah, it's totally that. And that would be a time where you could work with the audio engineer and go, what can we do? Like, I've moved people positions on stage before. We've tried different microphones, things like that to make sure that the other sounds, the house, or especially the drums and cymbals aren't the thing that's causing you the problem.
Great. Did you have something else or no?
No.
Okay, great. I thought of something in line with this question. So as a vocalist, I go through seasons of what my pitch reference is. So like sometimes I'm like, I want a bunch of piano because that works for me. And then other times I'm like, no, I like the bass. I want that up really loud. And then I get good pitch. Might be a weird question, are there certain instruments that shouldn't be turned up more for pitch reference than others? Like do some cause issues more than others? Like if I crank my bass too much, is that muddying things up where that's making it so I can't hear myself? You guys know what I'm saying? Are there any specific instruments or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say as a vocalist, instruments that your register is really similar to. For maybe a female vocalist, it's the electric guitar 1. If you have 2 electric guitar players, one of them's going to be playing like lower stuff. That might be an okay pitch reference, but the other one's going to be playing lead lines that are like right in the spot that you're
So
singing.
it's actually fighting your vocal.
So it's fighting your vocal, and like they're playing a line and you're singing the melody, or you're doing like an ad lib or something, and your notes it's chaos. And so I would say like, find one where when you're singing let me think about this. Where you find yourself singing, like the register that you find yourself like mostly in is not conflicting with the instrument that you're wanting to base yourself off of. Would probably be my...
Yeah, that's great.
The challenge is any instrument could be a problem. And like I'm thinking of Apple Valley, we don't have a keys player for students. So that's usually a go-to that can work really well. But if you don't have that, then it's like, what am I gonna pick off of? So I think it could change, like be flexible with it and try some different things out. And if one night something's not working, like don't be stuck with like, I want to hear the keys, like get used to some different ideas. And then just be really careful with the level of it. Like you want enough that you can get the pitch reference, but not so much that anything bad about that source or that's conflicting is gonna override that. But also I would just say in general about pitch, since we're talking about it, if you feel like you're struggling, don't be afraid to ask us, or ask somebody you trust, like how it's going, because I think obviously it's a point of a lot of self-consciousness among vocalists, and sometimes it's not as bad as you think, and sometimes when you think it's great, it might not be as good as you think. So just open up that can of worms and talk about it and ask questions like where am I missing and where do I need to push a little bit more air? Things like that can be really helpful to just be able to, because then the last like 5 or 10% of pitch really is like just the confidence to just sing out and not try to control it too much.
That's true. And after like a rehearsal or something, usually an audio guy is sticking around, and it would be a really easy thing to like have them play back your song and just see like, am I as pitchy as I'm? And that just might give you, I do that every once in a while, just like, okay, I don't sound terrible.
And it's way better if you ask than we try to figure out if we should say something to you or not. Because it's just, there's not a good way to be like, hey, you're a little pitchy.
And then I cry. Isaiah makes me cry every time.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. Cut that out.
I just say stop
You
singing.
guys know I'm joking. Okay.
Sorry, I just had a thought.
Oh, no, I did. You go.
Let me just, really quick, for the sake of the video that we'll post on this, let me just do the 101 on this.
Great.
Okay, so there are 3 pages. Instruments are on this band 1 page. Band 2 is mostly used for tracks and click, and then like if we have secondary instruments or something coming in from Lino, I usually find those on the 2nd page. And then Vox is Vox, so all microphones, that would be TV is talkback, so that'll be like front of house and usually on stage microphones, instrumentalists that aren't singing. Speech is usually your campus pastor or whatever, and then 4 handhelds to do vocalists. When you go, so back to this instrument page, when you go to the select button, it'll bring up where your EQ is, where your panning is, and where your reverb is. Push select, and it's labeled at the top here. So this is the first channel kick, and it's just pushing up the up button and the down button to get what you need for all of these. We'll get into the mid-frequency stuff a little bit later. And then panning left and right, and reverb obviously is right here. And then there's solo buttons. So when you hit one, it just is only that channel. And this is such a troubleshooty thing. Sometimes I will accidentally solo something and move to a different page, and it still is soloed. But
I'm not the only one.
But and I can't hear you because it's soloed. And so, anyways, there's a nice little magic button, solo off. It's on the right-hand side here, and that'll just open up all your channels again. So that's a nice one. And then last 2. is a Verb fader. So it's the same function as when you push select on a channel. It's just over here, and it's a fader instead. So you can just adjust how much reverb. Same with panning. This one is up is right and down is left. Those are labeled. And then this nice little button. If you get too wily, like sometimes I'll open up a mix at a campus that I haven't been at in a long time and I don't have a mix saved, and it's a ton of panning, you can just hit these center buttons at the bottom to kind of like reset. So that's the basics of the iPad.
That's great. I thought of some specific, more vocal questions, as long as we're on this. Reverb for vocals. So speaking from my experience, I used to use a ton of reverb on my vocal.
Because it sounds so nice.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, now I'm incredible because of the reverb. But what it was doing was it was masking all the mistakes, all the imperfections, all the sins in my voice. And I'd listen back to playback or whatever, and I'm like, geez, I'm a little pitchy. That's weird. So I started turning the reverb completely off, and it sucks to listen to, but I can hear those imperfections and forcing myself to get better. But I guess, Bryce, like, do you use reverb? Is there a certain amount you use or that you recommend using? Should you not use any? Should you use a lot?
Yeah, I think we get into a little bit of like the preference zone in most of this, but especially in this. There are lots of vocalists that are like dry all the way. I just want to hear the right thing, so it's the right note. I mix my ears to sound as close to like a record as I can for the inspiration of it all. I probably wouldn't go more than like a third up.
It's a lot of reverb.
Oh, sure. Is it this one? So I just put like a touch on there just to like carry over and just to like bring that live room feel into my ear space. So for vocals, if I'm gonna put verb on, I'm gonna probably put it everywhere. And for vocals, like as long as it's not getting, I feel like when it gets out of control is when your verb tail is running into your next notes, and then you like can't tell if you're on the previous note or you're singing the next note. So if it gets to like, or a lot of times when a vocalist is like, I can't hear myself, the culprit is that their verb is way up here and you can't hear yourself because you sound like you're in a box.
Well, I like what you said where you're like, you're doing it so that it can feel a little more like a room, but you're not necessarily using it to, I don't know, make yourself sound better. It's just like giving yourself that element of we're in a room. That's really cool. Great.
Reverb usually has the effect of moving whatever that source is like out, but also kind of back. So if you think of like you want your vocal to be forward, if you put too much reverb on it, it's gonna feel like it's moving backwards on you. And the more you add to different sources, like without realizing it, you could essentially have made all of the sources into mush, and now it all just kind of sounds bad and you don't know why. It's hard to get back from that. Can be.
Not yet. A lot of times there are
Q&A at the end.
Sorry, I keep thinking about this, like what happens if I say I can't hear myself? And a lot of times what we were just talking about before this is some of, you have me so far off right now. Sometimes there will be like a preset put over onto yours, and there will be existing EQs that do not function for you. And so a really good thing, if your mix is feeling like wily, you can't hear yourself, is to literally go channel by channel and set things back. Like, you know, you'll have something like this or this.
Okay, maybe we should do a flyover of EQ. Just the treble, what's on there? Treble, bass, mid.
Should we do?
The three kings of
Mackenzie?
EQ.
Yeah, you can ask.
Yes. So to repeat the question, if you feel like your pitch is off, would I recommend that you turn down Verb to keep that. I mean, I would try anything. What I would tend to do if I'm in your shoes is no, in a methodical way, but just go like, what happens if I turn down the Verb? What happens if I turn down something else? What happens if I listen to this on its own? Like all of those things can be helpful, but it's hard because the time is working against you. Like it's a Saturday rehearsal, it's your song, you may not get to go through it again. Like what are you gonna do? Prioritize, fine tuning your pitch and making sure your ears are perfect, or like do the song in a way that's gonna be compelling for the service. So that's tricky, but yes, I would say Verb can be an immediate problem zone, and it's easy to just take that fader and move it to see what's happening in that. So yeah, that's a good point.
Cool. Okay, so we'll do the EQ thing. Now this might get into a little bit of complicated technical territory, but we won't get in trouble for it. But
It's your video.
I decided I won't be mad. Yep.
Josh isn't going to be mad at
Yep.
himself for this one.
So yeah, just to fly over, let's look at that EQ page, kind of just explain, the treble, mid, and bass, the uses, what you would boost depending on the channel, what you would take out, that kind of stuff.
Yep. Treble is all your, wow, I hadn't thought about what are the proper words to use.
Treble.
Chintzy, shiny, I don't know. It's
Brightness.
It's bright.
These are nice words that we understand.
Yeah, so this is all that like S sound, the top end, the consonants that hit really hard is all like way up here. When you take that out, obviously it starts to sound really muted and almost unintelligible. Bass, opposite, low stuff. For vocal, maybe this doesn't matter. For vocal stuff, I usually duck a lot of bass because I can get a little more definition around a vocal without it like overwhelming my mix. So, but that's bass, same thing. You take it out for a bassy channel and that goes away. Mid-frequency, this is a great channel to know about because there's so much option here. So it's all this like boxy kind of, there's like some boxy metallic stuff and you can hear, so I have this mid boosted all the way up. And what's nice about this system is that you can sweep if there's like, if you don't know, is it high stuff, is it low stuff? You can kind of like sweep to find what in my voice is like the most offensive thing, maybe that.
There are a few offensive things.
And then you can like duck some of that stuff out so it's nicer to hear. But that's the mid frequency. It's getting kind of complicated to do this, but that's what the mid frequency is. It's a nice tool because there's like endless options here for if you're diving into EQ, just sweeping this and you can like literally hear as it goes where this frequency is bumping. So that's
Nice.
This isn't, Isaac, this is not in his mix is not in the house right now, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's got
Gotcha.
in-ears, so he's hearing it.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's
That's
describing what
embarrassing.
he's hearing.
Everybody just forget everything.
We will demonstrate.
We'll do it with a mix. That's good.
Everyone's like, oh, interesting. Yeah,
Oh,
I hear that.
I definitely hear that.
Liars!
Something also to know about EQ, so you don't feel tons of pressure, is there are like some basic EQ that's in this system that you don't see. So don't feel like, oh, I'm not doing anything to this, I must be doing something wrong. Like there's already some stuff that's been done for you that's kind of the average of what we would do to a vocal so that you don't have to do as much work. This is more like fine tuning to adjust how your specific vocal has. Like I said, like offering you guys some prescriptive like settings to start with would be helpful with that. And then if there's other instruments that you're like, hey, I know that this guitar is really bassy and I want to turn that down, then that's an opportunity to do that. Yeah.
So some of the EQ you already set, is that some of the stuff he was saying, like were the vocals, you take the low end down, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like low frequencies that aren't really that much part of your voice that we just get rid of completely.
Sure.
And then most voices, depending on how close you are to the mic, it gets thinner or richer in the low, mid, kind of boomy area. So we take a lot of that away. But so for somebody else, like if you're listening to Josh's voice, it's beautiful, of course. It might sound fine, but you still have that occlusion of your own voice, hearing that in your own head, that you might need to use the EQ to take that further.
Nice.
And you can ask the audio people for help with that. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, good question.
Great question.
What does EQ stand for?
I definitely know, but why don't you just go ahead and tell her? I have no idea.
We'll see whose definition is better.
It's called equalization or equalizer. And the idea behind it is that you can use the adjustment of like different frequencies to equalize, make things sound pleasing, or however you want to call that. That's the origin of it. Yeah.
High, like sparkly stuff, mid, kind of like boxy stuff, and then low, really boomy stuff is really all that it is. Great, do you have another question?
Let's.
We could like do some of this mixed stuff.
Yeah. One more quick thing, because I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts. Panning channels. So you can either have channels be centered so you hear it in both ears, or you can pan something to the left, something to the right. Is there anything specific that you like to pan that helps the mix, help you hear yourself better?
Sure. No, I don't do panning, but I do know that a lot of people, to create space in their mix, especially in this like I can't hear myself thing, like to, if I'm here on stage and I've got an electric guitar player over here, a bass player right over there, the drums are back there, and the keys are back here, to kind of try to place those in your ears with just like simple panning. So, the electric guitar player is on my right. I probably wouldn't send it all the way to the right. I would just kind of notch it over a little bit just to create space in my left ear for my own voice, like to fill out the space. Bass, I probably wouldn't pan. Keys, maybe I would, maybe you might notch it over. Keys are they hard pan though?
Yeah, it's different depending on the source, because there are some sources that are stereo, meaning like there's two different channels of information coming in that already sound like they're kind of to the outsides of your ears, of your head. Yeah. Where a vocal or something that's a mono source, or it has like only one input, feels like it's in the middle. And so sources that are already sound like they're separated, left and right, you probably don't need to do much panning initially. You may over time like start to just tweak those a little bit. And some people would choose to say like, I'm gonna put one guitar way over on one side and one on the other. Yeah. All of that's creativity that you can use, but if you start to think about all of the things that feel like they're in the middle, if you want your voice to be in the middle, move some other things that feel like they're kind of on top of that to the outsides of that, which can be helpful.
Yeah, I think when I look at this and I think about being a vocalist specifically, I would say like create as much space as you can for your voice to be like right here. And so if your worship leader is standing to your left, I would maybe push that over. I know a lot of people that will like edge. The click actually takes up a ton of space in a mix. So I maybe would like put that to whatever side is more comfortable for you, just to like free up. It's all just to free up space. But again, like tracks are gonna be stereo, so they're gonna be spread, so it kind of like feels more full to not try to move them one way or the other. Same with keys and same with overhead and toms. So, but yeah, I would say just don't like go 0 to 100. So don't think like electric guitar is over here, I've got to do that. Acoustic is over here, because I think
like
you can run
hard left, hard right.
You can run into like a really wonky mix really quick, and even going into EQ, like don't crank your treble, like do a couple of clicks. And when you do that, like that compounding over multiple instruments will brighten your whole mix. But if you start by like diming every treble because your mix feels dark, you're gonna break your ears.
And if right now you're like, EQ sounds really complicated, I don't really want to get into that. One thing that like we as audio engineers kind of challenge ourselves to different ways. One of them would be like, don't touch anything, just adjust all of the levels so that you can get something that sounds good. And if you have a guitar that's really not sounding good to you, like just turn it down. Don't feel like if I only knew how to EQ this, then I would have a good mix. Just start by balancing the levels because that's 90% of the battle.
These buttons at the bottom are really nice too because it's literally like one click at a time. And that's a good way to just like barely notch it so you're not accidentally like blowing your ear.
Yep.
If you're at a campus that doesn't have like your special mix, or if you're not happy with your mix anyway, one hack would be just ask the audio engineer to pull up somebody else's mix. And we could pull up, I think there's 20 or 24 slots of different mixes in there that might have been saved. And it could be that you land on one that is like, this is a much better starting point than what I'm working with. And that's an easy way to kind of like try some different things out.
Yes, for the record, every time I play a different instrument, I pull up somebody else's mix. So if I'm playing bass, I just think of a bass player that I think is good.
That is not a subtle movement, though. That's not subtle at all.
That's not subtle. That's just like I don't know what to do. I don't maybe want to put the time into this right now, and I'm playing something that I'm not usually playing or whatever. That is a good thing that I do too.
That's great. I like what you said too about like volume should be the first thing you think of. Like just play with levels before you even think of EQ. That's really good. Okay, should we play some stuff?
That sounds great.
Mix around?
Yeah, I think what this will be is we're going to hear a song from last weekend at this campus. They'll play it from back there. You guys will hear this in-ear mix in the house. Obviously, won't be exact to what I'm hearing technically, but the space will feel different. So we're gonna just do our best, and I think I'll just kind of try to show you what things do, just what things do, and then you'll be able to try to retain some of that. And yeah,
what did they do?
Here we go.
It's gonna be a gift.
Seated alone in glory, enthroned on the highest praise. You sent the darkness running out of an empty.
Let's just assume I'm the worship leader, and
enthroned on the highest praise.
sorry, this is.
You sent the darkness running out of an empty grave. Seated alone in glory, enthroned on the highest praise. You sent the darkness running out of an empty grave. Seated alone in glory, enthroned on the highest praise. You sent the darkness running out of an empty grave. Now seated alone in glory, enthroned on the highest praise. Out of an empty grave, now seated alone in glory.
This is just that
It's
section
looping,
over
by
and
the
over.
way. It's looping a section.
Okay. So this is only really doing, or this is just doing levels. And I would say, sorry, I'm talking so loud because this is so loud in my ears.
Yeah, keep going.
As the worship leader, obviously, like, I want my vocal to, like, pop the hardest. And then just adding support around that is all we're doing. So you kind of, like, get your bass line. Who is that?
Oh, sick.
So good.
Of
Who is
course
it?
it's Beck.
Beck. That's somebody who's in your mix, I would think. That's a good one.
I trust him.
So like what we were saying earlier, like this electric guitar, these lines might interfere with your vocal register. And what's nice, you can actually like solo.
Jesus, you reign above it all.
It's the same. So maybe that's not a good pitch reference.
Sing hallelujah to
But this is like this low, beefy thing that's like giving you note after note.
Yeah.
So
Jesus, you reign above it all.
So just boost that a little more than everything else to get your pitch.
Yeah.
You reign above it all. You reign above it all.
Dang, Aaron. Wow.
Oh.
It's actually me. That's me singing.
So I would say
Yeah.
like if I was leading the only, I would say that this is a pretty balanced mix for like what the band is giving. And then I would take it one step further and like get into an EQ for the vocal specifically. It's got like a lot of this like low, mid-low stuff.
Just taking a little bit out.
And so this is like one trick that I do is dime the mid and then sweep and find that like tone that's like literally making my head resonate. And then
Oh, cool.
and then it just kind of opens up. And then you can turn up. And then you get into and then you have a BGV, kind of same idea. Sorry, here we go.
The earth erupt in song. Sing hallelujah
So
to
same idea.
the everlasting one. There is no higher name.
Pitch perfect.
You reign
above it all. You reign
Did you say panning? Yeah. Oh yeah, get that up.
Okay, here we go. We're gonna do a little bit of panning. It's about to start over. Hold on. Here we go.
What if we just loop that?
Maybe start with the mono stuff, like the vocals. Start with the mono stuff, like the vocals.
Okay.
Just see where we get there.
now seated alone in glory, enthroned on the highest.
Can you guys hear that moving? It's okay, cool.
Is that going over there? No. Over there.
That's fine.
Now seated alone in glory, enthroned
On
on
the
the
highest praise. You sent the darkness
Slowly build.
out of an empty grave, seated alone in glory, enthroned on the high. Darkness running out of an empty grave, now seated alone in glory, enthroned on the highest praise. You reign above it all. You reign over the universe and all.
Maybe I would do something like that.
There is no
Solo just the vocal and the verb. And just kind of show maybe like too much.
reign above it all. Let all of heaven and the earth erupt in song. Sing hallelujah to the
Perfect.
This is danger zone. I would say like
That was my problem all along.
not any higher probably than halfway.
above it all. You reign above it all. You reign above it all. You sent the darkness running.
That's such a tough cutoff spot. Cool. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's, yeah, let's stop that real
Great.
quick.
Yeah, you
Thanks,
can
dude.
stop it.
Aaron and Megan.
Yeah.
I mean,
those-
anonymous one and anonymous
I'm really
two,
glad they didn't
YouTube.
pick me because it would have been like,
Totally. I'm
We
going
have
to do
a
that
question in the house.
in a
We have
lower key.
question.
Question. Okay, should we just give a mic so we can hear it?
I am someone. Okay, so I never used ears before singing at Eagle Brook specifically, and I get so much energy off of hearing the crowd and that. So I always only have one ear in. What would you? Bryce is like looking at me with that is the wrong thing to do.
Should I tell her?
No, don't tell her.
What?
I never use my other ear.
You just use one ear.
Yeah, but you're not supposed. You shouldn't. We'll cut that out. Drew, hey, Drew, can you timestamp that? We're on minute 140, and yeah, that's a great. I mean, yes, I totally feel that.
Okay.
It's why probably mostly I do that. You know, I don't have a good answer. I don't know.
It's
We can move on.
no, it's more comfortable too because you get rid of some of that occlusion of having both. Yeah. For the recording, the just question is about like getting that energy from the house without having both ears in. I mean, there are maybe I know like at Apple Valley, we do have some crowd mics that can be helpful, but they can also be really dangerous because you're getting drums and it can. It's hard to set the level because there are no people in the room when you're rehearsing, like things like that. You do hear the sound of the house. I mean, I think it's a blend of what you're giving when you're worshiping on stage and leading people is the primary thing. Hearing loss is a real challenge with using one ear because the ear that when you have both ears in, your brain kind of says like, oh, it's twice as loud. But when you have one out, now the one that's in has to be turned up even louder, and that ear ends up getting really abused. So I would say try some things I know some techniques people use will be like popping one ear just a little bit at times, at key times, or maybe even starting there by having one just not quite seated all the way so you can kind of get used to it. I think that most people who endeavor to like, I'm gonna do this, and I need to make some adjustments to my mix and reverb and things like that to make sure that my mix does give me that energy and feeling, can get there. But it's just like anything else you do, it's kind of a discipline and you have to like go, okay, I'm gonna do this.
I think
Yes.
another piece of that I really don't like is my own, like Matthias just had me do this. When I hum normally, it sounds like a normal voice, and then you plug your ear and it's like, it resonates your face. And I think part of that is it's just uncomfortable and you have to get used to it. Two is like diving into some of that EQ where it's like, let me tail off this bass and like maybe some of these lower mid frequencies to see if that kind of opens up my brain to like having it feel more like, and then two, yeah, it's just like, if you feel like there are moments that you are looking for, do it in the moments instead of like permanently out. Would be an option for someone who would want to do that.
Yeah, a lot of times if you have the click in your ear, you pop one ear out, it's feeding into your mic if it's loud. So yeah, some people will, I think Mark Allen does this where, yeah, they'll strategically pan the click to the ear that they know they're gonna leave in. That helps us out because yeah, click in the house is always a dead giveaway.
Like during prayer.
Okay, so I also used to only use one until I came here, and I'm trying to. However, when I lead a song, I want to be louder, but when my friends are leading a song, I want them to be louder, but we can't really mess with our mix mid-set. So do you have a tip for that?
For me, I just like nail down my harmony part and I don't worry about them leading. So it's like, I want my mix where it's like, I'm hearing myself the best when I'm leading the song. And then I just have a good key reference so that I know that I'm not singing my harmony part wrong or like pitchy. And I would say that's all. That's really the main thing.
Yeah, without having a monitor engineer making those adjustments for you on the fly, it is tricky to find the middle ground. I think like Also, there's a fair amount of if you're singing a background vocal, a lot of times if you're wanting to back off your mic just a little, or just back off like how hard you're pushing, you know, that's all based on how your voice works, and pitch and all that factors into it. But that's usually okay. Like for audio engineers, like if you're gonna sing a BGV and you're just gonna go for it, like that's okay. We can turn you down, but also if you're gonna back off just a little bit, as long as you're not getting like lots of drums. So then you can self-mix a little bit and still hear them. You can't turn them up, but you can turn yourself down by just being off the mic just a little.
Okay, because I noticed during the mix, like example, you didn't have a ton of background vocals. So
Yeah.
that's how you really just cut them out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like if you can, I think where the danger zone is if you're on with a vocalist and they're ripping a harmony while you're leading a song and it's off balanced. Like if they're louder than you, then you're just, because you wanted to hear them lead a song, like you've missed the mark. And so that's where I'm like overly, like I'd rather know that I'm nailing my harmony part or whatever, and know that they're doing a great job over there, and then like get into a tricky spot where it's like I'm leading the song and my vocal is like tending towards the harmony because that's what I'm hearing, instead of like anchoring the melody for the room. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're singing harmony, is it not recommended to use whoever is leading the song as like your pitch reference for the harmony? Still find a pitch reference. Because is it possible to be like flat on a harmony, but the person leading it is not? Or if I'm flat singing the harmony, is it because, can I blame it on someone else?
That's an interesting thought. I don't know. That sounds like a skill to like intentionally flatten yourself to match. I would always go off of the instrument. The instrument
I think at that
reference.
point you're just going off vibes. Like just you're singing, you're trying to be with them, match up, and if you happen to slide to their pitch, like great.
This is going to be a little bit of a divergence, if
Nice.
that's okay. Sometimes after I'm on, I feel like my overall mix was just a little bit loud. So it's kind of a two-part question. What is the ideal volume for my pack? And the second part of that is sometimes in a song, it'll be louder in the loud moments and quieter in the quiet moments, obviously. But what is a way that I can make my mix to kind of balance that out, or like the ideal volume for it to be not too loud in the loud moments, not too quiet in the soft moments?
As far as the pack question, I mean, most packs do, it depends. We have Shure packs and Sennheiser packs. The Shure packs are a little bit more linear, meaning like no matter what volume you're at, it sounds decent. The Sennheiser packs, you want to be like above 5 or 6 because it actually starts to sound different, better if you're there. And if that's too loud, you could always turn down the master volume, like this guy right here. Or girl, I don't know about the... Anyway. But as far as like balancing, yeah, again, feeling with the music, are you saying like to avoid having to constantly adjust? Yeah, you kind of got to practice like feeling the middle of it, and don't be afraid to just keep walking to that iPad or Roland or whatever and just keep going. It is, and I guess kind of also accept like it may not exist. The perfect world when you're mixing your own ears doesn't really exist. Like there's probably a dozen monitor engineers in the world that can give you the perfect mix every time, and the rest of us just have to survive. So some of it is just expectations of like, what's it gonna be? But I also I think it's widely accepted, like everybody sees that you have in-ears in. So if everybody sees you reach around and adjust the volume, I don't think the average attender or consumer of media or anything like that ever thinks like, what are they doing? That's so weird. Just go for it.
Yep, every week I touch my pack per song. So I feel like it's not about having a perfect mix, it's about having a balanced mix. And then when you get into it, when you don't have access to your iPad anymore or the Roland, then it's all pack. And then when you do that enough, you're not like thinking about which way do I turn this. you just know which way to turn it. And so the more you do it, the more comfortable you. And a lot of times, like the hassle of doing it makes you get over it, and you just do what you got to do and leave it or whatever. Because the main thing is the main thing, which is like people are in front of you and you're trying to like lead an experience. And so we set a lot of our preferences aside to lead well. And I don't know that always means the perfect mix in our ears.
I won't call them out, but someone had said they set their pack mix to be turned all the way to 10. So then they never get louder than they need to be, and they just always turn it up to that. Is that good advice to follow? Or
If you start singing a song and you're like, oh crap, I can't hear, I mean, you don't really have anywhere to go from there. So to me, that's a little dangerous. But it's your life.
Are you where you want to be?
Yeah, I would say maybe not good advice. Like I would give yourself at least. So it doesn't matter if I have a short or sennheiser, I put it exactly at halfway every time. And then I always have room. And I usually end up needing to go up like 1. And so if you're wanting to like dime your pack, put it at 9 so that you have like a little bit more.
And if you're looking for a concept that gives you like the feel where you don't have to think about it or look at it, I think you could do that, but just go all the way up and then no, I'm gonna take it all the way up and I'm gonna rotate it back like, an amount that feels like your muscle memory can learn that. As a target, like you might start out and go, I'm gonna go to something like really basic that has what I need. I got my pitch, I have my time, and I have me, and I can do this. But I think as you grow and try more things, like coming up with a mix that's nice and balanced with a little bit extra of you is a good way to be able to get that energy into your mix and feel like you really know what's going on. You can react to things. And if you're in a position of leadership, you can also get feedback, which is nice.
Let me do one more thing, just one more minute. Let's run this back again. And I think I am a worship leader, I'm an MD. And so obviously I have a ton of stuff that I'm like listening out for versus a vocalist. So let me put one up here that maybe I would think is a little more reasonable. Here we go.
Please.
So let's
We need
say,
some reason in this room.
sorry, let's just say I'm the BGV, okay? Unison, nice.
Bryce GV.
So I think that's maybe more of a, can you stop that in my, thank you. I think that's more of like a reasonable, I think that the energy from the bass and the tracks is really important to like let you know how you ought to be. And then having keys as maybe your main, this keys player, whoever it was, is like very tracks heavy, not piano, so you have to like decipher some of that stuff. We have keys players that just play piano. That's a really good key reference. Like just hitting the chord so that you know at the beginning of every measure where you're at. And so kind of deciphering that, but maybe that's more of an appropriate like vocalist mix that I would do if I were not paying attention to the band. But back to the energy thing, if it's like my mix is this and I'm wanting more energy, so I'm pulling an ear out, then maybe go back to your mix to like get your energy here and feel like you're a part of this band and you don't have to like hear the room to like, I don't know.
That's great.
We can cut that out.
Okay, we'll cut it out. This is great stuff. Great questions. Great content. You guys are brilliant. Glad I could sit up here and
Like
listen.
and subscribe for more
Yep.
content like this.
Yep, we'll have this on the internet, so go watch that when it's available. Thanks,
Email
everybody.
us questions if you have them. If you have more stuff that is like, why did you say this? Send us an email.
Anytime.
Thanks for all you do. Now go and work on your mix. Goodbye.